Welcome back to another season and episode of Transfer Talk, Season 2, Episode 1. Today, I'm sitting down with the original host of this show, Travis Antonacci, and me, Anuhea, Student Success Coach for UH West Oahu here on Kauai. So, Travis, now that you've graduated, can you share some reflections about your time at UH West Oahu? Like, you literally just graduated.
Yeah.
In the fall. So how does it feel to be a college graduate? Who do you want to thank? Anything you would have done differently?
Yeah. Before I begin, it's great to be back. It's great to be on another episode of Transfer Talk. Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity, Anuhea. If I would like to thank anybody, I'm definitely grateful for all of my professors, my advisors, and my peers. And of course, the listeners of Transfer Talk as well. If it wasn't for you all, this would have been a much more difficult and let's be real, lonely experience. So I'm really grateful for all of you guys. It feels like I've done a lot of great work at West Oahu. I've had some incredible growth during my time there. And when I look back at some of my projects, I think to myself like, wow, that was a really great topic. And when I think of my professors, I think of some of those really cool office hours meetings, how my thought process and worldview kind of evolved through my time there.
Isn't it crazy that it's true, right? Hindsight is 2020. Like you see things so much more clear after you're like, when you're in the middle of it all just seems like a mess. But now you're looking back on it, you're just like, wow, that was really productive mess. That was really like insightful mess, but it all worked out, right? So if you could go back and tell yourself one thing different to do, what would you have like told yourself, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question to ask because, you don't have to stress so much, right? I overthink a lot. I convince myself that it's all or nothing, that I have to plan every detail out, that I have to be strategic, right? And that's a really hard pattern to break. And it's hard on you as a person, but it's also hard on your relationships. So if I would go back and tell myself one thing, it would be everything's going to be okay. It's going to work out. Just keep showing up. Do the best that you can and just keep showing up. Don't get lost in the sauce, if you will.
Yeah. So while in the midst of all that learning and writing and all of that, do you feel like there's anything that you missed out on? And then also some like practical advice you got for someone in that same area?
So there are plenty of clubs that I would have loved to join if I was over there in person, but as a DE student, you really can't necessarily, but they're working on that from what I understand. And then there were a lot of classes that I would have loved to take in, but couldn't for one reason or another. So as you guys know, I love giving practical advice. Here's the tip of the episode or the segment, if you will. Federal guidelines specify that financial aid will only cover the courses that count towards your degree, to count towards a requirement. So it has to be for a specific purpose. And it really has nothing to do with like the department or any one individual at the university level. It's just literally federal guidelines. So for those students who are really involved with their work, that are really in tune with their studies, if there's like one specific class that you really want to take, but it doesn't fit for your degree, like within your degree requirements, you have to be strategic. You have to be proactive. So plan it out, apply for scholarships well in advance, or try to get a student job to cover the cost for that class or the classes that you want to take.
Well, that's really, really great advice. I feel like a lot of people don't realize the ramifications of these like, specific financial aid federal requirements. So thanks for sharing that, Travis.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so every single UH West Oahu student before you graduate has to participate in a capstone. And let's hear, how did yours go? What do you think about your project?
Okay, so I'm incredibly proud of how my capstone turned out. I would say without a doubt, the best piece of writing that I've ever produced, best research I've ever produced. But I also feel like I kind of did two capstones in a way. The directed reading course that we've talked about in the past with Dr. Kompok and the actual capstone that I did with Dr. Cook. Both projects were incredibly intellectually stimulating and challenging. And at the same time, they feel complete for the scope of like the course requirements, right? The expectation of those classes. You might relate to this, but like, how parents say they can't pick their favorite child? I kind of understand that a little bit better now. I know that sounds really weird, but Yeah, I'm just really glad that I had those two opportunities with those two incredible professors. But if we focus in specifically on the actual capstone course, I was pretty shocked at the sheer amount of time that I spent just thinking through the ideas, the logic of it. What exactly am I trying to say here? What am I trying to prove? How does this specific source fit within XYZ? Am I opening myself up to this critique if I say this? Is this a tangent, or is it required context for what I'm talking about, right? There's just so many things that I spent so much time thinking about trying to make my argument concrete. Yeah, just a ton of intellectual energy. And I think putting that time in beforehand made the writing itself, at least for the first draft, pretty seamless, pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's the second and third drafts where I got to really like test my ideas, test my methodology, see what held water and what didn't. When it comes to the writing itself, I was trying to be as surgically precise as possible, very academic, because the end goal was a publishable paper. Just putting a lot of time in, just trying to make it perfect. I know there's no such thing as perfect research, but yeah, it was a lot. And my practical advice for the capstone would be definitely check out like citation management. Consider using things like Zotero if your professor allows it. Some professors might not allow it, but yeah, I mean, I had 120 citations. I had 40 to 50 sources in my paper, and just trying to get those into alphabetical order in the bibliography took 6 hours. Yeah, anything to help you be as organized as possible to streamline that process is probably a good move.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I think organization always makes things a lot easier for all things in life.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, you have to write a paper for your capstone, but you also have to present it within your major. So do you want to share a bit about your capstone presentation, especially since you're a distance ed student and maybe it's different for a person in person as well?
Yeah, sure. Again, I overthink everything. So I pre-recorded a video version of my presentation because I was scared that the power would go out on Kauai while I was mid-sentence. So it's better to be proactive and not need it than to need it and not have it. Yeah, so like boiling your research down to 7 to 10 minutes can be really tough. And I think what was helpful for me was to try to think and articulate your core thoughts, like what is the core purpose of your research, and what do you think the audience will find most interesting about what you've done. Try to find the hook of your research, right? And then you can also, another thing to keep in mind as well is that you can prepare and polish your presentation as much as you want. You can practice it 30 times if you want, but the questions that you're going to get from the audience, that's a different story. It can be a really abrupt shift transitioning from presenting to fielding questions from the audience because it's two totally different types of speaking, right? Totally different types of presenting. So I think it's important to recognize that just being in that moment can be a little overwhelming for some students. So I highly recommend to kind of mentally prepare, like walking into that meeting. Take the time to prep for that.
Do you have any tips on how students probably prepare for these questions that might be coming for them at the end of their capstone presentations?
Let's start with like the questions that you most likely be asked. So expect questions like, why is this topic important to you? What was the most important lesson you learned from this process, right? Those are kind of like the steadfast questions you'll most likely be asked. You can also try to guide the questions in a way. Like if there's something that you want to talk about, but you can't fit it into your presentation because of like a time limit, you can say something like, for the sake of time, I'm going to skip over this specific topic, but if you're curious or you want to hear about this, ask a question in the chat for the end. Like you can kind of guide the conversation that way a little bit. But if we really break down the core types of questions that you'll be asked, and I talked to Dr. Michael Pock from West Oahu's English department about this topic, and he had some really great insight that helped me in like reflection. So he explained that there are only really 3 main categories or genres of questions. So if we go with type A to start, I'm confused about this part of your paper/presentation. So this is a clarifying question. This is too easy. You're the expert on the topic. You got this. You can talk about this all day because you know exactly what you're trying to say. You just wrote a 10 to 30 page paper about this, right? Type B. How can you apply your work to this, whatever this is? So this type of question can be a bit more difficult, especially if it's something that was out of the scope of your project or study. So I would say take the foundations of whatever you worked on, whatever your research was, and lead in with that. So you could say something like, given X, Y, and Z, this would likely cause this to happen. Therefore, the implications of this in this context, blah, blah, blah. You're just using the foundations of whatever you research. And type C, this really has nothing to do with your presentation, but I want your take on it. We love these types of questions, but they can get a little strange. So I would say go for it, have fun with these types of questions, but don't venture too far out.
Awesome, Travis. Thank you so much for sharing the explanation of kind of what to expect when you get questioned through your capstone. Well, I heard that you did a great job replying to those questions, and congratulations, you also got picked to be one of the 2 commencement speakers at the fall graduation. So can you share about some of that exciting experience that you had through that process?
Yeah, it was a really incredible honor and responsibility to be picked as a student speaker. So I got nominated by one of my former professors. I had the opportunity to audition in front of a committee, and then I didn't hear anything for like 2 weeks. And then on a random like Tuesday or Thursday night, I get a phone call asking me if I was still interested in being a student speaker. And of course, absolutely, let's do it. From there, I got to meet with Dr. David San Jose on a weekly basis to practice my speech. And then the big day came. And you know what? We can actually roll in the audio from the commencement video if you'd like. What do you think?
Sure, add it in.
May I please invite Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Dio Vono, to introduce the first of our student speakers.
Our first student speaker, Travis James Antonacci, is a candidate for the Bachelor of Arts with a concentration in history. The Kauai Island resident completed an associate in science degree in creative media before becoming a distance learning student at UH West Oahu. He served as a distant education assistant advisor, assisting and supporting UH West Oahu students residing on Kauai, and he has worked as a graphic designer and media manager with the Kauai Community College Department of Marketing and Outreach. Additionally, he served as the UH West Oahu The Pu'eo Press associate editor. He was awarding the Outstanding Academic Achievement in Humanities Award in spring 2024 and the Hybrid Student Research Symposium and Creative Works Award in April 2024. Following his graduation, he plans on pursuing a master's degree in education and is committed to giving back to Kauai students by serving as a high school history and special education teacher. Lucky Kauai. You guys are lucky. Please give a warm welcome to Travis James Antonacci.
Aloha mai kako. Mahalo nui to all of you here, and thank you to all watching at home via the live stream. Among those watching at home is my grandma. I love you, Graham. I hope you're feeling better, and I'll see you soon. The great Cicero once wrote, "In oratory, the very cardinal sin is to depart from the language of everyday life." With that spirit in mind, please, I want to hear you cheer when I say, "How are we feeling today, Kapolei?" Sorry. So that was officially the coolest thing I've ever done. But wait, my friends, wait. I have a confession to make. I did not attend my high school graduation ceremony. Instead, I went out and got a tattoo because at the time, I thought it would leave a greater impression than a few hours in a cap and gown. While it definitely left a mark, I've come to realize that milestones, such as commencement, are moments to acknowledge and thank the individuals who have helped us along the way. When I first enrolled at UH West Oahu, I did not know the meaning of the word pilina, which translates to relationships and connections. Yet through the mentorship, support, and friendships I have experienced, I now stand before you today with the profound realization that pilina is the most essential lesson I could have ever learned during my journey. You see, when I left Kauai Community College, I felt defeated in a strange way. I had just spent the previous 2 years essentially learning how to be a college student, and the connections that I made were seemingly gone. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. And I'm sure many of my fellow transfer and distance education students felt the exact same way. Over time, I found that my perspective was wrong. I was not starting from scratch at UH West Oahu. Rather, I was expanding on the connections and the network that I had developed at Kauai CC. However, building these new connections and these new relationships did not happen overnight. It took real time, effort, and dedication. We're talking countless Zoom office hours meetings and a handful of inter-island flights. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes it was awkward, nerve-wracking, and challenging. But let's face it, every moment was worth it because we could not have made it to this point, here, today, together, without the support and encouragement of others. Take a moment now to look around. See the familiar faces in the crowd. Go ahead, guys. Each one of us has a professor, an advisor, and a peer who is incredibly proud to see us walk across this stage. And of course, our ohana, who have stood by us from the very beginning. That is why we are here today. I'm here for Dr. Kim Kompak from UH West Oahu's History Department, who took me under her wing when we embarked on a directed reading course together. I'm here for Dr. Alexis Iram, Kauai Community College's social sciences instructor, who has helped me more times in recent memory alone than I can possibly say in the time allotted. The same goes for the University Center at Kauai CC. For Kealohi Perry, College Success Advisor to the stars. And for my buddy Sean Cooey, a fellow Kauai-based history student who I shared many laughs and plans for the future with in between classes. You taught me the meaning and importance of pilina, and for that, I will always be thankful. Now, this ceremony is about more than just our individual achievements. It is a celebration of the community that has uplifted us all. So as you leave this ceremony, as you begin to celebrate with your friends and your family, I ask of you only two things. Please make your appreciation known. A heartfelt mahalo nui loa, fa'afatai te lava, or grazie mille, can truly mean the world to those who have supported you. And as you move forward, no matter how far you travel or how high you soar, carry the wisdom that you gained here at UH West Oahu with you. Share it with others. Remember, it takes time and effort to build pilina, but ultimately these relationships and connections are what makes life meaningful. With that, I want to say congratulations and mahalo for the journey we have shared. I wish each and every one of you the absolute best. Aloha.
Thank you, Travis, for that very touching speech. Our second speaker.
Go Pueos. Awesome speech, Travis. Once again, you always leave us with some practical information. What are your parting words?
So ultimately, big picture, I hope I made a difference for some students, right? The goal has always been student-centered. Anything to help you guys succeed. My kind of personal philosophy is that a key responsibility of upper division students is to kind of help and guide, lend a helping hand to lower division students, to have their backs, you know. College can be tough, and navigating this process is not always crystal clear. So why not share the knowledge and experience that can make a difference for the next generation of students, right? And I also hope along those lines that Transfer Talk will continue. I'd love to see student hosts from different majors and even from different islands, just to get as many perspectives as possible. Obviously, during my time as host, Transfer Talk had a humanities skew to it, a humanities bias to it, because I was a humanities major. And the majority of the faculty guests that we had on were from the humanities division. So I think a business major, for example, would lend a different perspective and a different vibe. And I think that would be really cool to see. Ultimately, you know, time will tell, but I'm excited to see what happens next.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time, hard work, energy, all of the things that you've put into this podcast. And yeah, anybody else want to join us, let us know. We're happy to have you on here, learn how to use the proper tools and media machines. Yeah, reach out to us.
Thank you, guys.
Mahalo.
Mahalo for listening to Transfer Talk. The views and opinions shared by the hosts and any guests are solely theirs and do not reflect the views and opinions of UH West Oahu or Kauai Community College as an institution. If you enjoyed listening to this episode of the podcast, please like, share, comment, and check out all the other episodes. Aloha.